Well, welcome back. We are in Matthew 12, part 5, and we're starting in verse 46. While Jesus was still talking to the crowd, his mother and brothers stood outside, wanting to speak to him. Someone told him, "Your mother and brothers are standing outside, wanting to speak to you." He replied to him, "Who is my mother and who are my brothers?" Pointing to his disciples, he said, "Here are my mother and brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother." Okay, so in Matthew 13:55, we actually have those names of his brothers. And let's see if I can actually turn. Here we go. In Matthew 13, verse 55, "Isn't this the carpenter's son? Isn't his mother's name Mary? And aren't his brothers James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas? Aren't all his sisters with us? Where then did this man get all these things?" And they took offense at him. Okay, so we know who his brothers are. We also know that for a time, Mary and his brothers, his family, thought he was crazy. In fact, we know this from Mark. Oops, I lost my marking I had earlier. Mark 30. I've been doing this too much today. Mark 3:21. When his family heard about this, they went to take charge of him, for they said, "He is out of his mind." Okay, so his family is thinking he's crazy there. And then in John 7, verse 5, we also read, "For even his own brothers did not believe in him." So Jesus is having issues in his own family. They think he's crazy. They don't exactly trust or believe anything he's saying. So sometimes there comes a separation and a disowning, which we've read before in previous chapters. There sometimes does come that separation and disowning from our physical family, our blood family, whenever we begin to follow after Jesus. Jesus experienced it. So when we say that Jesus has walked through the things that we have faced on earth, he very much has in many, many forms. And this was one of those. His family was kind of disowning him. They're pushing away. Even though in the beginning Mary pondered all these things in her hearts that had happened with his birth, she knew that he was Messiah, all these things, but then she's starting to question because even his mother thinks he's crazy and that he's lost it. So, but what he does say is even though you might lose your physical family as having that deep connection, you do become a part of the spiritual family. And we know this too with Jesus' family, even though they thought he was crazy during this time. Later on in Acts 1:14, I just had it and then I lost it too fast. Acts 1:14, right there, says, "They all joined together constantly in prayer along with the women and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and with his brothers." So obviously they were able to see the truth, and they responded into that. My words, it's so bumbled. But they responded well to Jesus' message and received him, believed him after his death and resurrection. Oh, we also know that Joseph has probably died by this point, based on history, and also that he kind of drops out of the picture a lot here. So, and then also in Galatians 1:19, let's see if I can get there quickly. Galatians, one of my ways to remember this has always been Georgia Electric Power Company, if you ever need a way to remember where things are in the Bible. But Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, Georgia Electric Power Company. Okay. Galatians, that was a freebie there for you. Galatians 1:19. I think there's some other cross-sects people use, but that's the one I grew up with. "I saw none of the other apostles, only James, the Lord's brother." Okay, so we also know, again, he becomes pretty strong leader in the church. Jesus, his brother James. So the spiritual ties supersede the physical ties of family. And like I said, Jesus was disowned by his own family. But there's also the verse I think we talked about before, that whenever we give up things, that Jesus says that that we will be given 100-fold for the things that we lose to follow Jesus. And that is exactly the picture here. Is you might lose your family. You may feel like you have lost a lot when you follow Christ, but you're going to be given back 100-fold what you lost in your spiritual family. So that concludes Matthew 12, and we'll pick up Matthew 13 next week.